Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar in this crazy world we're operating in now. I have a really great guest today, man. He's a very deep cat, and he's been in music a long time, and this guy's really been there and done that and seen it all, except coronavirus before this.
Yeah.
Isn't that something? You think you've seen everything, you're like, what the hell is this? I didn't expect this one. Anyway, we're with the one and only Jimbo Mathus. He is the founder of the Squirrel Nut Zippers, and he's also got a successful solo career. He's got a new album out. It is literally beautiful, man. I mean, I got goosebumps now just talking about it. It's a great record. We'll talk about it. And quick couple announcements. I want to thank Denise Kovalevich for connecting us. Thank you, Denise. And make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com/subscribe. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button down there. All righty. Jimbo Mathus, originally from Oxford, Mississippi, and he was born into a musical family, which he joined up with early on. By age 8, he was proficient on mandolin, and by 15, he was playing guitar and piano and singing harmonies with his family's folk, bluegrass, country, and blues repertoire. He also plays bass, drums, trombone, and harmonica. And early good times consisted of hunting and fishing with his dad, and in addition to playing music with the family. In '93, Jimbo founded the Squirrel Nut Zippers. The band's music, if you're not familiar with them, it's a real it's like an amalgam of all kinds of stuff: Delta blues, gypsy jazz, swing music, and some other styles involved, klezmer music. It's just a they're not going to be in one bin,
No.
The band toured extensively throughout the 90s. They were very popular. They played at a presidential inauguration, the Summer Olympics, Dick Clark's New Year's Eve show, and loads of other major TV shows. They had gold and platinum records, and their LP Perennial Favorites hit number 18 on the Billboard chart, and their album Hot hit number 27. The Squirrel Nut Zippers disbanded in 2000 amid lawsuits filed by some ex-Zippers members. Left penniless by these events, and after a decade of relentless work and divorce. That's like horrible to say. Divorce and lawsuits all in the same. It's like, I know that was not a good time for you, man. After all that, Jimbo returned home to Mississippi. At around the same time, he started working with Buddy Guy, actually, and he was touring with Buddy on and off from 2001 to 2003. He also recorded with Buddy on his album Sweet Tea, which is a great record, and the Grammy Award-winning album Blues Singer. Since then, Jim's built up a successful solo career. He's released, dig this, 15 studio albums, including his most recent, which is again called Incinerator. And I really can't wait to talk about it. It's really a deep record, man. He's also performed as a sideman and done sessions and production during this time. And prior to this whole coronavirus thing, Squirrel Nut Zippers have been back together and been touring for about 4 years, and that will resume once life as we know it here on Earth resumes. Man, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks, Craig, man. I appreciate you reaching out to me. Again, thanks, Denise, for hooking us up, man. She's wonderful. So,
yeah,
I'm glad to be here with you, man.
Right on.
See what y'all got going on up in here.
Dude, I love your accent, man. That's like so authentic, man. It's like the real deal. Sorry, your family, musical on both sides. Yeah, man, this is not like watching a Southern guy on TV. This is like the real deal I'm listening to here. I could just shut up and listen to you talk.
You need to get a tetanus shot after you talk.
Well, you know what? I'm from the Bronx, and if you would have told me that I needed to get when I was 25 that I'd probably believe you. I'd be like, oh my God, yeah, you can. Anyway, your family, man, really musical on both sides. Were they professional musicians or like hobbyists or both?
Yeah, I mean, I actually, you read about a lot of people, that grew up in like social music, which is just music that's performed for friends and family. And that was me, I mean, I never saw a microphone, until I was probably 16, I'd been playing music half my life up to that point. So it was just something we did for our own amusement, and a lot of songs have been handed down, through generations of my family, and so it was really like a very old school way of learning to communicate through music and learning like social importance and, you know, the communication person to person, you know, sitting around in a room with no plan other than to amuse yourself and, you know, drink a lot of beer and entertain the troops, you know, and that's what we did, you know, and it was, my dad was really talented, you know, extremely talented. He never has made a dime off of music in his life, you know, and it's just what he had straight jobs and all the other crew, same way. I was the one that broke out and really just took to it and decided, well, I started writing earlier and that gave me something else to add to the mix, you know. I started writing my own songs, but you see very few people like I'm my age, my generation that grew up like I did in that regard. There was no, you know, it was really pre-everything, pre-MTV, pre-internet, and pre any kind of aspiration of a music career.
Sure.
Was never thought of. So it was very old-fashioned the way I was taught and the way I think it shows in what I do now, the way I communicate, you know, through my music and use it to get people together and harness emotions in a group. You know, it's the same concept I use now through records, through producing, through concerts. I still take that with me if there's 10,000 people in the audience or 10. It's the same. It's the same for me. So I try to get that connection going like we had growing up, you know. It's very hard.
A couple of things you said that were very touching about, first of all, the social stuff. I've had, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 bluegrassers, and that's the only time that you kind of see that where bluegrass music is somehow involved.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what we did, you know. It tends to run in the family, you know, those kind of things. Like for me particularly, like on my dad's side, you know, my dad's side comes from like some Scottish people, and they paid their way to America in 1830s, 1840s as fiddlers on a steamship. You know, I have the fiddle sitting over in the room right next to where I'm sitting right now, the original fiddle that came from Scotland that brought my family over here. And then once they arrived, they were pioneers in North Mississippi, and they continued in like religious music, brush arbor singers, quartet singing. So before it had a lot of instruments, you know, so the brothers, they all sang, and they did a lot of what you do when you're a social musician. You entertain, you play for funerals, you play for you know, birthdays and weddings, and you play for things in the community that people want music to enhance and to dance and things like that. So it goes all the way back to Scotland on my dad's side, and it kind of went dormant there for about 2 generations, and my dad picked it back up, you know, growing up in the 50s. And he picked it back up and was quite good at it. Had a nice high tenor voice, and he's got a great memory. So we focus on the lyrics, you know. In a lot of folk music, you got a story to tell.
Yeah.
And so you got a lot. You don't want to leave out any detail of the story, you know, just so you can paint the whole picture of what's going on in that song, the emotion that's involved, the history involved. So he was a big stickler for the lyrics.
Yeah.
You know? And that's a lyrical ballad tradition going back centuries, you know. And then I picked, like I said, he found a lot of like-minded people, found some other relatives in the region that still did it. And he was a great ringleader, you know, and he's a great entertainer, even though he never did it professionally. He's just very, he's a character.
Yeah, but I bet you took some of that on, and
Yeah,
look what you did running.
I took it
Yeah,
all on
and
and
founding
tried,
Squirrel Nut Zippers. Yeah.
oh, of course. Yeah. And took it on and made a living out of it.
Well, I was going to ask you, how did they must have been really proud of you, though, that you took it to that next level, right?
They are proud of me for that.
Yeah.
It took a little doing because, I was supposed to follow the normal procedure. He was a very educated man, educated college graduate, he's an
Right.
attorney, you know.
But you're a super bright guy. I mean, I've read your
But I just
background.
didn't
You're
want, they expected me to go to school and get a degree, and I guess. But at an early age, say around 17, I told him, no, I'm not doing any of that.
good for
And
you.
so actually, even at that time, he was like, that's okay, man, that's cool. And he never held it against me or anything. He was just like, good luck.
No, but that's
but as
cool.
time,
That's really,
yeah,
that's really cool.
it was big of him, I think, to not guilt trip me or to berate me about it. And I had no idea what I was doing, other than I was going to go. I got a job playing bass in a band, a few counties over. I didn't
Right.
go very far initially, but I moved out and went on my own and said, I'm on my own. I'm not going to ask y'all for anything.
Mm.
I'm on my own here. And that's what I did. So that was at age 17,
That's
and he is very proud of me now. And I got some funny stories about that too, as we go along.
That's
But
cool.
I'll tell you one now. If you
Yeah,
want me
please
to.
do. I'd love it. Yeah.
Okay. So my dad's always had a fascination with the West. So as soon as he was able to, he and my mom moved out to Montana. They lived in Wyoming. They lived in Montana. They lived in Arizona. And so my dad got very ill with a disease called Guillain-Barré syndrome. It's an autoimmune disorder, and almost died.
Oh,
This
man.
is about 13 years ago.
Is he still around now?
He's still around now, and so
Awesome.
he's still alive. And he's too mean to die. He's still on it. So I go out to help and so he's also very smart, and his mind's working, even though his body wasn't working real good. Once he was kind of kicking this Guillain-Barré, he was able to sit up, and he was able to move his hands, his arms somewhat, and you become completely paralyzed with Guillain-Barré. Only thing that works is your central nervous system, respiratory
Oh, my
system.
God.
So you go from a fully functioning human to a zombie that can't move, but your brain is still alive. It's very crazy disease.
God.
So as he started recuperating, I went out west to Tucson. They live in Cochise County outside. He's been social distancing for a long time. And so I go out there to help my mom, and she's like, he's getting into poker because he could get out and he could handle the cards. He's really good at cards and dice. And so she said, take your dad. We had like a handicap van. She's like, take your dad down to this place, and they're having a poker tournament. He wants to go. It's like one of the first times he'd been out of the house, right? And so I load him up in the van. Of course, my mom was exhausted with all this. So I take him down there, roll him up in his wheelchair to this, and literally go into this like a Western saloon, like you see in a movie with the swinging doors.
Right.
and the shadowy old boys in cowboy hats and stuff. And I roll him up to the table. They all kind of gather around, and he takes a pistol out of the back of his pocket, sticks it in his wheelchair. So we're sitting back there, Wild West scene. I'm just kind of laying back. I don't talk a lot when he's around because he talks a hell of a lot. And so they're getting into.
It's funny these dynamics in the family that you have, and you just sort of like that. Family's the only time you put up with shit like that, really.
Yeah, I don't talk when I'm around him because he's very verbose. So I'm sitting there just kind of behind him. I got his back with whatever's going on because it is a poker game and everybody's armed. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sitting there playing the jukebox. They actually had a really good jukebox. They had, all kind of different stuff, but they had a lot of like cool old honky tonk and, Western swing and stuff, just from the ancient jukebox. So I'm sitting there kind of keeping the music going in the back, not saying a lot. After, maybe an hour playing, Jimmy's, he's taking their money you know, you know, with his little claw. And one of them old boys, you know, just to break the ice, he said, "Who's that old boy standing behind you back there?" He said, "That's my son." I said, "Oh, okay." And he said, "Well, he's playing some good songs. I like those songs he's playing, you know." And my old man's like, "Mm-hmm." And so one of them ventured to ask me, you know, well, you know, what do you do? Talking to me particularly.
Right.
I turned on and I said, "I'm a musician," you know. And they're like, "Oh," and kind of chuckled, you know. I said, you know, went around the table like, you know, disparaging comments under their breath. My old man looked around the table and he said, "He's made more money than all you broke dick motherfuckers put together."
Right on, man. That's great, man. That is awesome.
And there was like silence at the table, and I went back to punching the jukebox.
Wow. Hey, man, that's great. That had to make you feel good too, you know, like, yeah, right on, Dad, you know. That's cool, man. That's nice.
I'm waiting for the pistols to bust out. You know?
Yeah, right. Well, lucky he's in that wheelchair. They might have.
Yeah, they would have made a mistake.
Wow. Thank you, man.
You know, that shows you a little bit of about where he's at now and his type of personality, you know.
Yeah, man. But it shows that he was really proud of you too, man. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. He's not going to let him sit there and disparage me.
No, Dad would. I got 3 kids. I would have been all over that like a white on rice. Yeah, that's, you know. When you were about 20, you joined the Merchant Marines. I was curious what prompted you to do that and what did you get out of that experience?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So I went and played bass in a band. And then I started, you know, really around 18, 19, I really kind of I had the lightning bolt go off where I really decided I wanted to write my own songs, my own music, but I had no idea what that entailed or even how to go about doing anything with it. I'm in a rural, redneck, agricultural college town, you know.
And that was in Oxford.
That was in Starkville, Mississippi, where Johnny Cash got arrested the first time.
Okay.
Tibahaw County. And so, you know, I'm kind of floundering around. I'm trying to sell a little weed, you know, trying to figure out how to start my own band and what the hell I'm doing. And I just kind of hit a brick wall there when I was about 19 or 20. So I hung in there about 2 years on my own. And I got an opportunity. A lot of the sort of older hippies and outlaws and stuff I was hanging around with would go work on the barges, you know, on the Mississippi River. You could go make money pretty fast. You had to work really hard. But you could go get signed up on the river boats, like the barges.
Yeah,
going up and down the Mississippi River. And it sounded interesting to me. You know, I needed some money. I was tired of kind of living like I was having to live. I kind of hit a wall with what I wanted to do. I knew I had to move. I had to leave Mississippi, but I had no idea how or what to do. And so here's a chance for me to go out there, make some money, learn a trade. And I also wanted to it was another component to that. As I got the bug to write songs, started out as a very, you know, I'm young, I'm a teenager.
Sure.
So you tend to go towards the introverted, you know, like the romantic, you know, overly in your own head shit.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't like that. Even at that time, I was like, I need to really get my ass kicked hard and like learn some more lessons and then come back to this as a writer.
Wow.
So
you jokingly started, we were talking about something else. You started our conversation today before we hit record about something. Some people feel you got to suffer.
Yeah.
For art. Is that sort of like the same theory that you went off to conquer the world in?
To figure out. Yeah. Well, I didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
I heard that, you know, that's from the like romantic poet era. And a friend of mine used that to describe my music in one of my albums that I made. But no, I really needed more experience. I knew that. I knew I had to get the hell out of Mississippi. And I knew that on the boats, you could work a month straight and then you'd have a month off with pay.
Okay.
And so, my intention was to go out there, get a lot of heavy experience on the boats, on the rivers, and then travel on on my off time. And so as I started doing that, when I'd get shore leave, I would hop in my pickup truck and just look at a atlas and just go, I'm going here. It sounds interesting to me, and then just travel and camp. I would just camp out. Quickly figured out that like college towns up east and tended to be, or anywhere really, college towns tended to be more interesting, more what I was looking for. People my age that were doing things that I wanted to do. So I quickly figured out if there was a college there, I'm gonna check it out.
Man, I give you a lot of credit. That's really intuitive and pretty courageous for a young kid.
It was intuitive. Yeah, I guess both.
Yeah.
And then, just pick up hitchhikers. Sometimes I would hitchhike myself, just to see what would happen, just ride trains.
I did that one time in my life. That was it.
Just to see what would happen. And a lot of shit happened. And so, that's how I started piecing together what my life could look like, and I did the boats for, I think, about 2 years, a little over 2 years. It was like a lifetime.
Yeah, that's hard work, isn't it?
And incredibly, and in the elements, and so in that 2 years, I figured out where I wanted to move and why I wanted to move there, and I realized what I wanted out of a place, and that ended up being Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and that's where it all started going down, and the reason I went there, it was music scene. There were cool bands that were, instead of being hated if you were an original band, it was encouraged. There were record labels there was bookstores where I could find out what I wanted to know. And so I started educating myself, like in the libraries and in the bookstores and in the record shops. And then it didn't take me long, within say a year, I had a record deal.
So let me ask you this. I always marvel at stories like this because, that's like a gift to have that level of awareness at that age.
I think I was very fortunate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Intuitive, I think, was a good word you used. I didn't know what I wanted, but I knew it was out there and I was going to find it. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's really, nobody's aware people are texting on their phone. I'm amazed, just like getting in the car. It's an adventure. I don't know how people make it home and back. Honestly.
I don't know how I made it in those days. Honestly, I should be dead, but yeah, it was just, it was almost like a hand was guiding me, it was very strange. And I don't know if it was, I don't know how to explain it other than I've always seen it as a calling, what I do anyway. And I think part of it at an early age was I was being called, to do this. And so, I had seen some things, like I'd seen some like little fanzines and stuff when I was in high school. Like somebody brought me one from like LA or something. A friend of mine went to Los Angeles. So I was looking at this little fanzine, rock and roll fanzine. I was like, kids my age are doing this shit somewhere, it's like, I need to figure out what's going on out there, and not so much to be, it was just an internal thing I had to satisfy. And I'm still working on it today,
Man, if you're curious, you're curious. That never stops, man. I have this saying, smart people realize how little they know, and stupid people think they know everything. It's
know
everything,
everything,
man. If you have halfway intelligence, you realize no matter what there's like an infinite amount of stuff that you like to know, that you need to know more, right?
Yep.
Man,
I think in those 3 or 4 years when I first got to Chapel Hill, I packed so much in. I was devouring everything I could find. And I conceived of like the Squirrel Nut Zippers in that time. And pretty much everything I learned at that time, I've just been unpacking ever since. I mean, I add to it,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, as an adult, you know, mature adult. That I always knew I had to have some bark on me before I would be an artist that I would admire. It, you know, I needed to have that experience. So I packed a lot in, and I'm still unpacking a lot of stuff I learned, you know, in those days, you know. I still pull things out from those days, even like on Incinerator. There's ideas on there, you know, that songs that I actually wrote then that I've
Yeah.
never used, that were just laying around, and I was too young to understand what they meant then, until say when I made Incinerator. I mean, that's one example, you know. And then, you know, I learned a lot real fast, you know. It's almost like a college degree in several things, you know, that I undertook.
Well,
A master degree.
one thing you said I wanted to ask your opinion on, and I'm not looking for anything religious related, but you said it was almost like a hand was guiding me.
Yeah.
Are you like a spiritual person? Like, do you feel that somebody, the universe, God, whatever your term for that person or body is, was guiding you?
I do.
You do.
I truly do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I
Did you
truly
believe
do.
this back then?
I was too in the weeds then to even
Yeah.
know what was going on. But, you know, over time, I appreciate the guy that I was then. I don't know if I'd have the courage to do it now. I guess I'm just older, and I didn't know enough to not do it.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Sure.
And wasn't thinking ahead at all. I just wanted to be competent as a musician. I wanted to excel as an artist, you know. I wanted to excel and be a visionary, you know, bring these visions that I would just half formed, you know, bring them to life. And the first real thing I did like that was the Squirrel Nut Zippers, you know. Yeah. But there were a lot of components that went into that act.
Well, I want to tell the listeners some of that, because what Jimbo did was he moved to Chapel Hill, and then he spent a lot of time studying at the University of North Carolina Library. He studied Latin, theater, poetry, medieval alchemy, which, man, you got to be passionate to study that, because that's not something you casually wake up one day and say, man, I think I'll check out some medieval alchemy today. Literature, music. Man, so you're obviously like always, like in my notes where you're obviously intellectually curious and really bright. I mean, and so my question was, what you answered was, what drove this thirst? And it was you just trying to figure out the rest of the journey so you can write music.
Yeah, I wanted to be a complete, not only artist, but a person, you know. And that's one, I think part of being a great artist is being a functioning human that you know, takes care of other people and does the things that humans, and loves other people and has compassion, and, you know, is not just a selfish person, you know, somebody who's helpful, you know. And how do you get to that point? Well, none of those things have anything to do with being helpful to anyone, but they helped me. Like learning Latin, for example. I realized that, like, people was my first writers I was really admiring, you know, had all been trained in Latin, like William Faulkner, for example, and all the Romantic poets that I was learning. I had a mentor in Romantic poetry, you know, and how you fill words with so much meaning in just short spaces, you know, short stanzas.
Economical.
You pack it in there, so you can unpack that stanza in so many ways. And so I knew Latin was a component of classic writers, what their education was, so I was going to make it part of mine. And so I would sit in on classes. I actually attended like night school, basically, you would say, and I got like 3 years into Latin. I was considering being a Latin professor or a Latin teacher when the Zippers broke and gave me an opportunity to quit school and go pursue that, but it was, it's like, I
Wow.
could be in academia, that's cool. You get the summers off, and it still hadn't occurred to me that music was going to be a career. It still hadn't even entered my head. It was still just for my own knowledge, for my own curiosity. So it never occurred to me to enter music as a way to make money, until, the Zippers just exploded on me. My Latin professor, who was teaching me, he when I went to his office and told him because I was a great Latin translator. I did all like the street poets of, like Catullus and stuff, like the body. I was able to really bring it into like modern slang. And my Latin professor, he wept in his office, when I told him I was quitting.
Oh my God.
He wept and begged me.
Oh my God. Please don't. You don't know how many hot chicks dig Latin professors. You're making a mistake.
But I got what I wanted out of it. Then I got the scansion, the meter, things that I still use to this day. It helped me understand Faulkner, which helped me understand a lot more of where I'm from. Faulkner's from Oxford. His home is right down the road. He's buried right up the hill.
That's wild.
And so that's one of those things, and here's a funny story, because I never knew that. Growing up right here, I never knew things like William Faulkner is from here.
Right.
Like Sun Records is in Memphis, and that's where, they didn't, at that time around here, that wasn't celebrated. It was like, those were just some weirdos,
Interesting.
They had different names for people, for the black artists, the white artists, the writers, and so I had to move to North Carolina to figure out all of the things that were from right where I'm from, like Sun Records, like Elvis, Howlin' Wolf, Ike Turner, William Faulkner. And so I learned all that up there.
Interesting. That's funny. You had to leave Dodge to learn about Dodge. Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Because they didn't really celebrate the artists or arts here. They just thought they were as they are, on the fringe of society, excuse me. And I learned all that up there, and I immediately started kind of refocusing back to a point where I would come back here, and be a part of the legacy here, which I did.
In the 90s, mid-90s, you worked on a project to benefit Charlie Patton's daughter, Rosetta.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if you could maybe just talk a little bit about the project and what was so meaningful for you. And also for those people who don't know who Charlie Patton was, can you maybe talk about who he was?
Okay, well, that goes right into what I was just telling you about how once I moved up to North Carolina and got all these things going, so in a pretty short period of time. I moved up there in 89. I had my first records starting to come out about 91. And then the first Zippers record came out about 93. And if I'm not mistaken. And then so 96. What year did the Rosetta record come out? 96?
Hang on a second. Which one?
The songs for Rosetta you're talking about?
Mid-90s. I don't have an exact date. I just said
I think 96. So, I started making, the Zippers blew up. I started making a pretty good living, and I was able to, come back to Mississippi more, and just hang out in Clarksdale, down in the Delta, and see the writers, and things had changed since a little bit. They'd started moving towards like Mississippi, like accepting its like blues tourism or its blues heritage as part of a way to get people to come here. Well, because people coming from all over the world to visit sites here, nobody around here knew what they were doing.
That's
people
amazing.
Coming, and so okay, well, here's how I found out about Rosetta. It was a perfect example. Rosetta is from the Delta, okay, Clarksdale, Mississippi, Coahoma County. This is the home of John Lee Hooker. If any of your blues fans are going to know what I'm talking about. Muddy Waters, Ike Turner, John Lee Hooker, Sam Cooke, all from this one little area in the Delta.
Amazing.
And it's a little south of Memphis. over by the river, you know, and that's where my mom's people are from. So it's mostly a black population there, you know, still to this day. My mother's people are Italians, you know, and they were immigrants. They had been brought there to pick cotton, you know, not as slaves, but as basically indentured people.
Yeah.
And so,
you know what? This is only like how many years? This is not like as like we're talking about it like it's a 2,000 years ago, but man, it's kind of scary when you think about this shit 50, 60 years ago, man.
Exactly. This is, you know,
really scary, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So my aunt, Toni Carroll, she, her husband was a big cotton planter down there. You know, she married a pretty wealthy cotton planter. And so they had a maid in their house. And it's very typical, even non-wealthy people, middle-class people in the Delta had black people working in the family just because people needed work and people needed help.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not what you think of when you think of a maid. In her case, it was. In my aunt's case, but the maid's name was Rosetta. And so I started knowing Rosetta as soon as I was old enough to know who people were. Sure. Rosetta was always around. She would be at my grandparents' house when it's a big Italian family. When everybody would come over, Rosetta would come. You know, Toni Carroll would bring Rosetta, and Rosetta would help. You know, like the movie, you know. And so Rosetta's like somebody in my family to me. And I would always spend a lot of time with her. In the summers, I would stay in the Delta, you know, and I'd spend a lot of time with Rosetta. She couldn't read, you know, so I would read, like, she loved for me to read, like, out of the Guinness Book of World Records. You know, she was just fascinated by all that shit. And I would, like, show her. She's like, what does that picture say? You know, she'd say, what does that picture say?
That's
and
cool,
I'd read,
man.
And she would just, I mean, it would just blow her mind. Like, all this stuff going on. You know, she's from this tiny town, maybe 100 people, you know.
Wow.
And I've spent so much time with her, and in the kitchen was where she hung out all the time. I'd sit in there with Rosetta. So it was just somebody I loved dearly.
Yeah, of course.
So I go back, as I was saying earlier, as I started making a little money, started realizing, okay, my roots, where I'm from, in close to Memphis in the Delta, this is where American music was born, where I was born, right. You know? And so I really had educated myself then. I was on one of the trips back to Clarksdale to visit and hang out in the blues club there. You know, I'd hang out on the black side of town, go to the real deal fucking juke joints, man. Right. And I was starting to go there, you know.
There must have been some great hangs there, man.
I mean, and I was one of the first white dudes to ever even get up in there and even go across. It's literally across the tracks, you know. That's where it was.
But this is all part of your education, man. So I knew
this is all part of my education,
man. Yeah,
it's part of my education. So you know, I'm going back to one of these trips. I'm digging the blues. I'm going to these black blues clubs, you know. And then my grandmother tells me, she said, Jimbo, in that high Delta accent, Jimbo, have you ever heard of Charlie Patton? And I was like, yes, ma'am. You know, he's a blues singer from the 30s, and really, like, yeah, I know who Charlie Patton is. He's probably the greatest blues singer and guitarist of all time. Well, you know, a funny story. She's like, you know, some Japanese people came by the other day from Japan, and they knocked on the door, and they were asking me where Rosetta lived. And I told them where she lived down there. And you know, they were bringing her a check. For her father was Charlie Patton, and they would bring her a check for his records they sold in Japan. I mean, my jaw, it hit the floor.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay.
That was the best accent. That was, I could listen to you talk all day, man. Your voice, your accent is just like, I don't hear that too often, man. It's really cool, dude.
That's that high Delta. And so
I think I might like you imitating your grandmother better than your actual voice.
Probably so. Nobody hardly. That's a dying accent, you know. But
that's awesome, dude.
I grew up so much around that shit. That's that Delta.
Yeah.
So I mean, that just blew my mind. And then of course, it brought me, and I had been studying Charlie Patton's guitar style, his singing style, his lyric writing style a lot up to that point, having no idea that I was that close to him all these years. And so that was like, it really emboldened me. You know, of course, I would go visit Rosetta every time I went home, just like I'd visit my aunts, uncles, cousins, everybody else. But this gave me a whole other dimension to my visits with Rosetta. And so I started prying a little bit, you know, into her past, you know, into her family. And come to find out, you know, she's a good Baptist church going woman, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the blues, I mean, you hear about the devil's music. I don't know about how many of your listeners know much about like the real old Delta blues tradition was, but you know, they consider it the devil's music.
Sure.
Because, you know, the blues came out of whorehouses, or, you know, brothels, gambling houses, bootlegging houses. You know, that's where the blues men plied their trade.
Right.
You know, not, you know, on concert stages or even in polite society, you know. So she would never have wanted, really, it was almost embarrassing for her at first to come to grips with this shit, because she knew her father was a blues singer. She knew he died very early, but she didn't know the impact he had made on the world until these people from Japan came and brought her a royalty check for like a Japanese reissue. They had taken the time to find out Charlie Patton has one living heir, and that's Rosetta Patton Brown.
That's amazing, man. Certainly something.
And so she had to go through a lot just to grasp that.
Yeah.
You know, it was a earth-shattering moment down there in Alligator, Mississippi, where she lived. And so over time, she started to tell me stories about it. I know stories about him that nobody's ever heard, you know. And so she had also, to finish answering your question, she had shortly thereafter, she had a pretty bad stroke. Say about 95 or 96, she had a stroke. Couldn't work anymore. And my uncle and the aunt, Tony Carroll, were sort of helping her out a little bit. And it emboldened me to make that record as a benefit. I had a record deal. I was meeting people down here like Luther Dickinson, Cody Dickinson from the North Mississippi All-Stars. Yeah. I realized there are other people that had come up, say, 10 years behind me that knew things that I didn't know when I was coming up. It was more common knowledge.
Right.
You know, in the young, and say 10 years younger than me. So I met Luther, Cody, all these black, younger blues cats, Terry Williams and all these cats I said, I'm going to go make a benefit record, you know, for Rosetta. And we're going to celebrate her. We're going to celebrate her father. And we're going to raise some money for her, you know, to get her set up. And that's the impetus for that record. In it, I would have never really jumped into the blues thing, performing or recording, if it weren't for her, because it emboldened me. Because like, she's family.
Yeah, that was.
And
really
so
nice.
that got me in there, you know, because I would have shied away from it, because I wouldn't have felt it was my place, you know, to even attempt to get in the blues. I knew enough about it to know where it came from, you know. And I knew about it to know that it was the black man invented it, and you know, it wasn't a white dude or Italian dude's thing or Scottish dude's thing.
Yeah.
But it emboldened me to actually do it. I said, well, shit, Rosetta, no, I'll do it.
That was really cool, man.
That was a big turning point in my life, and gave me a lot of confidence, made a lot of connections in my life, and opened up the whole world of the blues to me, which led on to things like Buddy Guy. You know, and another thing, in that same interim, you know, the roughly 10 years I had been gone, Fat Possum Records had started up in Mississippi. And so they were finding these pockets of like these bizarre music forms, you know, like Junior Kimbrough, R.L. Burnside. So they were releasing this shit to the world.
That Junior Kimbrough, that guy is I listen to all that shit from him in the juke joints.
Yeah.
That guy's so cool, man.
Yeah.
Such a great vibe, man.
And so, all this had come out in the interim too, thanks to Fat Possum.
Yeah.
So this was starting to get more acknowledged down here as something that, hey, wait a minute, something's going on. Something has been going on a long time. We just didn't fucking know about it.
Yeah, right.
And we meaning white folks.
Right. In that area. Yeah.
In that area. And so that also happened. So I'm all digging. I'm getting to go to the juke joints. Now it's, you go to the juke joint in Chulahoma and there's fucking Iggy Pop or Bono. So it came a long way.
Yeah.
And I was right there on the cusp of moving back, coming back, getting projects going here, getting cemented back and going, hey, I'm from here too, motherfuckers,
man.
Yeah, we know. And so that, eventually led me to moving back full time, say 2003. But in that 7 or 8 years between the mid 90s and then, a lot went on. And the Rosetta thing was really the first thing that brought me back and it flipped a switch in my mind, in my writing, and just let me know, hey, this is your inheritance more than anything else, it is this. And it flipped
cool.
the switch.
It's funny how sometimes we meaning all of us, need permission to do something. Isn't that funny? Yeah, it's really funny. I mean, like, I don't even know the reason why. Sometimes it's fear. Other times it's just, you don't get your place, but you got that permission and then you're home free.
It gave me that. Yeah. It was more respect for the art I just didn't feel I was ready to try it or to do it in the first place.
Yeah.
I knew I had been devoting hours and months and years of my life into learning Robert Johnson, Charlie Patton, Blind Lemon Jefferson, and Muddy Waters and all this stuff. But, it wasn't my place to try that, even though I was intrigued by the style and was pretty damn proficient at the style. I don't think I would have ever brought any of that out into the public, but I got permission because of Rosetta, Rosetta, and it was
She
really
gave you a gift and you gave her a gift, man. That's nice.
And so again, I say I felt like something was guiding me through this, and how all that came together, it's almost impossible. You couldn't envision that. You couldn't even make it up.
Right. That's why when I always feel, when I've gone back in my life and looked at things, that's when I sort of got faith that something much greater than me was looking at helping me.
You feel that way too?
Yeah, because I've had some weird shit happen that there's like no way you could have planned that out. Both good and bad, which even the bad ultimately turned into good, from lessons or I may have learned, but like it's just too many different things happening.
Too much coincidence.
Right. Yeah. You bump into your friend at the store, that's a coincidence, man. But if you bump into somebody that 2 years ago, a buddy of yours told you about, and you always wanted to connect, I don't know if that's, I don't know. And
then it changes your life.
Right. There you go. Right. Yeah, man.
And so that really changed my life, even more than even creating the Zippers. That this is much more in my soul.
Yeah.
The Zippers were something I was able to concoct and add parts of this too. But no, this is like me. This is the roots, the dirt, the water, the soil.
Yeah, man.
This is where it's at for me. And so that's, like I said, changed my life. I mean,
good, man.
Mm-hmm.
That Junior Kimbrough, I just want to mention one more thing. He's got my all-time favorite album title. He's got a record, Most Things Don't Work Out. It's the title.
Most things don't work out.
Most things don't work out. Just it's it. Is that a good blues record or what, man? Most things don't work out. Anyway,
and I mean, and it's funny too, because you look at things like Junior Kimbrough, say somebody like Jimmy Reed. Say you go back and look at what started rock and roll. You know, what started the Rolling Stones, you know, Muddy Waters, obviously.
Yep.
Jimmy Reed, obviously, whose real name is Mathus James, which is odd too.
That is odd.
That's my real name, James Mathis. But
yeah, that is odd.
That blues music started a revolution in rock and roll, and so did Junior Kimbrough. I mean, you would have no Black Keys. If you would have no Jack White and all this stuff. You know, that Black Keys had a record called Chulahoma. I mean, that's where all they did was Junior Kimbrough cover. So it was almost like the rock and roll was being reinvented right in front of my eyes again, you know, and it was very cool. But instead of being those other artists, it was Junior, R.L. Burnside, was the Jimmy Reed and the Muddy Waters for all these other acts. Pretty heavy duty, and it just all lined up for me.
Yeah, man, very heavy duty. Hey, I want to go back to the blues in a little bit. I want to talk about your record, your last solo record, Incinerator.
Incinerator.
Man, it's some really beautiful songs. And as I said, some dark stuff, and it's very deep, which I like. To me, that's beautiful music. So I never talk about covers, man. I'm sorry. And I don't want to be like every other person that interviews you, but that cover is kind of cryptic, man. So let me describe it to the people listening. It's basically a photo of a man leaving a real old church, like a wood frame church, and instead of a head, he's got like the skeleton of a bull with the horns.
It's a deer.
Is it deer? Is that what that is?
It's a deer.
Okay, I know you didn't like randomly pick that. So what's that? You did.
I did.
Oh my God! Where did you? I thought you would have set that up and took the picture. How the hell did you find that? That's nuts, man. You ran.
Me and my buddy were just riding around the pickup truck drinking beer, and like we had a deer skull in the back. You know, there's a lot of, and he liked, you know, he had a really nice iPhone. You know, we used to just take crazy pictures when we were out riding.
So that's your buddy?
That's me.
That's you. Holy crap! Oh my God, that is so weird.
We were just goofing like in the back roads. You know, I mean, you see all kind of wild shit back there, and it ties into the Incinerator. My friend who took the photograph died suddenly. He was like we got so tight so fast, and did just spurred off a huge creative wave in me in my adult life. Say, when did Reverend pass? We'll call it 8 years ago.
Sorry, man. Wow.
8 or 10. Yeah, but shit happens, man. You know, it's like, so that whole record is a meditation on how things come and go. How, you know, but Reverend, I call him Reverend because he was on a mission, you know. His name was Robert Earl Reed, but he was a guy who never, and again, it's just one of these things. He had a friend go to Afghanistan in the army, and he left Reverend Robert Earl his guitar when he went to Afghanistan. Robert didn't play, never had even thought about playing an instrument or anything. He left him his guitar. And then his friend was killed in Afghanistan. And so Robert Earl, as a tribute to him, started playing this guitar. And about on or about the same. And he just immediately was this great songwriter, you know. And we were about the same age. He within a year of each other. And I met him just through this random thing. And I started encouraging him. He wanted me to sing his songs, like to demo them in the studio, because I owned a studio down in the Delta. And he said, I want you to sing these songs of mine. And the more I got to know him, and, you know, I asked, man, these songs are great. I said, dude, you sing them. Let me hear you sing them, you know, in your voice. So he grew as an artist within 3 or 4 years, within 2 years, that I knew him. Turned into this prolific songwriter, great artist. Robert Earl Reed is his name. If any of your listeners want to look up his album, Carlene, the name of the record's Carlene. It's you talk about dark. He was a dark angel, but he and I just used to goof right around. And that was just a picture, you know, and as I was going back through my photographs, thinking after I'd made the record, looking for the right image, I found that.
And I was like, perfect. Oh my God.
A lot of the material on there is about him even. So
Wow.
it really lined up. It's a great photograph. It's just threw it off the cuff. We're half drunk on tall boy Budweisers, if not fully drunk.
That's
and
wild.
and reefer, and we're poking around down out in the country, you know. And so
That's such a great cover, man. Like, you know, you'd have to pay some Madison Avenue agency like $3 million to get that photo or something. Seriously, you know, that's awesome, man. I'm so happy. That's a great story, man.
And then the photograph on the back, if you look at the back,
I didn't see it because of course I'm on streaming. So yeah. What is the back?
The back cover is also pertaining to Robert Earl. It's very hard to explain. If you haven't seen it, I can't hardly explain it, but the day that he passed, you know, suddenly just had a heart attack and died, you know. Oh, me and a bunch of buddies got together, and a bunch of my friends, my wife, and just had a big bonfire. We were just in shock. We just had a big bonfire out here in the yard. I live in a rural area, you know, just had a fire. We're sitting around talking, drinking beer. And if you look at that photograph, it's the back. It's dusk. You can see the cabins in the back where we live out here, and then the dusk in the sunset. And there's these crazy freaking sparks that are flying in the air around this fire. They weren't there when we took the picture. It's a very mystical looking picture. The fire itself looks almost purplish or something.
Yeah.
And so that's the back cover. It looks very hallucinogenic, but it's an actual picture that I sat there and just took on my cell phone.
That's awesome.
And so again, that's like me and Robert on the front and me and Robert on the back.
Yeah.
But a lot of the material in there is meditation on things that we're talking about now.
Well, let me ask you about that. There's 11 songs. What was going on in your life when you wrote them? Now, you said some of them are from way back and some of them but when you put the whole thing together, what was the theme of your life? What was happening for you then?
You know, I was actually in a very, pretty good, kind of just cruising on autopilot, like no big trauma or anything going on, but just kind of, and that allowed me to sort of start thinking and going, God damn, you know, let's thinking about all the things that we've been talking about leading up to this, just like really kind of taking inventory. I've been working so fast, so furious, writing, producing, creating, touring. I hadn't had a chance to actually stop and consider what it was, that I have done, and why the fuck I was even doing it.
Yeah,
you know, what drives me to do this? You know,
that's an important question that we don't ask enough.
And so it's like, I know I can make an album. I know I can write songs. I've done it dozens of times, hundreds of times. But, you know, I started kind of pondering these things. And with Incinerator, I decided, because I love to play piano, you know, it's one of my favorite instruments to compose on, and to just, when I play for my own enjoyment, I prefer that, you know. And so I told the guys I was working with at the studio down the road, I was like, I'm going to play piano on this record, and y'all do everything else. You know, Bronson played drums. Bobby Matt plays bass for Drive-By Truckers. He played bass on it, and he owns a studio like 6 miles down the road from me. And I said, Brian, you know, y'all do it. I'll play piano and sing, and y'all do whatever the hell you want to with the track, you know. So I just went in there, and so the piano itself led me down the trail to the more meditative stuff. And to something where you could really let that ring out, you know, that piano, the instrument itself. And so it started bringing songs back out of my memory, like the Never Know What You Got Till It's Gone. That's probably, shit, dude, that's probably almost 30 years old at this point.
Is a beautiful song, man.
And I mean, the lyrics and all, I wrote it coming up on 30 years ago, you know.
What happened? What was the story behind it? If you're comfortable, and if you're not, that's totally cool.
I had a dog called Shorty Brown that just ran off and got hit by a car, you know.
Man.
And I'm like,
dude, That is a tragic. Let me tell you, man. I've had animals. When an animal goes, man, it's guttural, man.
But in your early 20s, especially, you get really
right.
You hadn't lost a lot at that
yes.
point. When a dog, it was like everything, and now it seems almost
wow.
Like laughable to me after all I've been through since then. But it was just the dog that ran off. But it take on more meaning now that I'm older. And once I saw the way the songs were coming, and the feeling I was getting, it started bringing these memories back. Brought other songs out that I had just had laying around, and I started realizing this is a meditation, on what I've done, who I've met, how they've influenced me and I've influenced them, and how it just rolls and rolls around in a circle, of life and death. And, it's not a morbid record.
No.
But it's meditative. It's a meditative record.
I found it, I didn't think it was no, it wasn't morbid. It was a little sad, but not.
Yeah, melancholy.
Yeah, it was melancholy. That's a perfect. Yeah, it was not morbid. God, no, it's far from it. It was beautiful, man. It was, I want to ask you about some of the songs. Really Hurt Someone, and I told you this before we started recording. That is literally the most sincere I've ever heard anyone's voice. And I mean, it sounded like you were really sad and really upset in there. And I'm curious again, if you're comfortable talking about that. What was that song written about, or who was that written for?
Man, it was kind of an amalgamation of things. Like, I'm saying that this record's a meditation on people that I've met that have influenced me, or that I've in turn influenced. Well, a lot of people you meet along the way, you have regrets. You wish you could go back and change things that you did.
Yeah.
And I don't have a lot of regrets in my life. I've never really wronged a lot of people. But it's just sort of a composite of like all the things you wish you could take back. Like, I was a real asshole then. I really did hurt this person. I'd been divorced. I had a daughter that I was estranged from for quite a while.
Oh, wow.
She's 19 now. We're back together now somewhat.
That's great, man.
It took a long time.
I'm happy for you, man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
it took a while, and a lot of shit went down on that story, but it was really a lot about Cecilia, my daughter.
Good.
And just a composite of all those people that like I said, I don't go through slash and burn with the people I meet. Most people that I've ever met that I'm still friends with.
Yeah, I believe that.
Very few exceptions. But just that kind of feeling. And I had that riff and no lyrics for it. And I just sat down. I would go in the studio, I'm so comfortable with Bobby Matt, which is Matt Patton from the Drive-By Truckers, and with Bronson, the engineer. And I'd go in, and it's like, what do you want to work on today? We'd do one or two songs in a couple of hours, and I'd leave. And I said, man, I'd sit at the piano. I was thinking about when I was driving down, chords kind of came out. They'd sit around and listen to what I was doing, from the other room, and then I just kind of wrote the words right at the piano right there. And by the time I said, I got it ready, they're like, we're ready to record, play.
You wrote that song that quick. Has your daughter heard that, man?
Nah, I'm not there yet to where I want to.
Yeah, man. But you know what? Whenever you're there,
I don't want to.
Whenever you're there, let me tell you.
Yeah, I'd rather just be.
You know that?
I don't use music with it.
No, but let me tell you, you would have to be dead not to feel what's going on in you.
Right.
So whenever you're there, man, in no rush, let her check it out, because I think that will speak more than volumes that you could say out of your mouth.
I should send that to her. And I've written some songs for her since we've got back together that I've sent her, like little voice memos, like I send all my friends. Like, I'll write a song and I know somebody that'll like it. Just a little voice memo on my phone. So I've been sending her stuff, but that one I kind of shied away from just because I don't want to dredge up the past right now, but
Man, I get it. Whenever you're ready, though, man.
yeah.
Whenever you listen, man, you know when it feels right.
Yeah,
You'll know.
but in the studio with the lights down and just me and Matt and Bronson, and I'm just sitting there running through these 4 chords. I was really able to just dig in there and pull that out. So it wasn't a thing I was going through. I was going through it at the moment, and it was happening.
Yeah.
It was all happening.
Man, honestly, that's one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard. I hope your daughter gets to hear that one day, man.
Thank you, man.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. But every song on the record has a person that's attached to them, like that.
Right. Let me ask you a couple other ones. Been Unraveling. Your voice, I thought, man, you sound like Greg Allman in that song. Your voice was like, whoa, it's killing it in that song, man.
Wow.
Yeah, you sounded great, man.
Thank you.
Miles Beneath My Feet and Many More to Go Before I Sleep. Was that like about a breakup?
No, that's actually that's about being, as a musician, you travel so much and you're separated from people you love. That's really from my wife, Jennifer. And so it's just about how, a bond can't be broken just by distance. It's like if you're tight, if you have a true spiritual partner.
Yeah.
I wrote that like in a motel room in Hawaii, when my wife, I was working, we were doing 2 shows a night at the Blue Note. And, my wife was back here, and I just had this revelation. It's like, man, it's like she's right here with me, so it's like being unseparable.
Yeah.
But been unraveling is just like the road, it's and after man, I've been on the road almost my whole life, going back to the barges included, that's the road.
Did your wife hear that song?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man, that's cool.
Yeah, so that's really dedicated to her. And it's like the word Miranda, it's Spanish for like, it's a genitive for seeing. I can see you.
Okay.
Not a woman's name. It's
okay.
It's like seeing. I can see you.
Yeah, that's when you sing the chorus. That's when you sound like Greg Allman in that, which is really weird, man. Because I mean, your voice is great, but you sounded like Greg Allman there.
That's very weird.
Sunken Road, man, that's another powerful song. You and a lady are singing together. Who is singing with you, and maybe what's the backstory to that song?
Her name's Lily Hyatt. She's John Hyatt, the singer-songwriter. It's his daughter from Nashville.
Oh, sure, man.
She's an up-and-coming, very happening country, rock and roller out of Nashville with a great musical heritage. Sunken Road, that's one that goes to Robert Earl Reed, the man I'm telling you about, and our talks that we had, and that's really like a song like somebody that's just at the end of the road. We have things down south. We call them sunken roads, and what they are, they're all around here through the woods. They're like huge indented old road beds that are now all grown over. A lot of them going back to like when the Choctaws and there were footpaths.
Oh, wow.
And then they became, horses when mules walked on, and then automobiles don't, and then they become abandoned, as pavement moved in. These sunken roads, they wind all through the woods, all around here.
I never heard that.
Yeah, and so, they've just actually, human traffic has mashed them down over hundreds and maybe even thousands of years. And so they're out here all around, and the Indian paths became the white man paths, and then became abandoned over time. And so, it's a metaphor for a road that you're on that's not going anywhere.
No, man, that's a great metaphor. Yeah.
It's kind of like the Lost Highway thing with Hank, and like gearing down, it's got a lot of drug referencing, like it's also very much to like addiction in that song. People I've met, that I've lost, people I met that have not lost naturally, but through addiction.
Yeah, man.
Either lost, either died or lost like can't be with you no more, dude.
Yeah.
And there's quite a few of those as a musician and, entertainer, wander. There are quite a few of those. So there's a lot of drug references in there, like gearing down on a heavy load,
Okay.
truckers gear down, just when they coming down a hill, 18 wheelers, you got to gear down.
Right.
But you're also gearing down on a heavy load.
Yeah.
Talking about.
Wow. Yeah.
It took a strange fork in the road, and
Wow.
somebody that's really at the end of the road, either probably through addiction. That song is really about my bad addicted friends,
Yeah. Beautiful song, man.
Thank you, man. And again, it came through conversations and just through driving around drinking Budweiser tall boys, smoking grass with Robert Earl.
That's cool, man.
That's a big pastime down south.
I've never really thought about writing a song when I smoke grass. Why does that not happen?
Really?
Let's talk about Buddy Guy. How'd you hook up with Buddy? How did you hook up with Buddy Guy, and what was that experience like? Like, how did that?
Man, I came to him because of the Squirrel Nut Zippers, which has nothing to do with the blues, but the producer, it has something to do with the blues, but you wouldn't necessarily think they're going to reach out to Jimbo because of the Squirrel Nut Zippers. But as I was telling you earlier, and as the whole time that the Squirrel Nut Zippers are recording, becoming popular, selling 1 million records and all this, all this stuff, I was very focused on learning the blues, and as an engineer at a studio in New Orleans where the Zippers used to record, it was Dan Lanois' studio called Kingsway in New Orleans, Daniel Lanois. And he had an engineer down there named Ethan Allen.
That's so funny. Like the store. Yeah.
And who was very well known and very respected in those days. The producer of the Buddy Guy Sweet Tea record knew he needed somebody like me, but he didn't know me. But he said he was calling around, asking people that are in studios, like, I'm looking for a dude that's kind of like this. Like, he's got to be able to play the Junior Kimbrough style, the R.L. Burnside style, because that's what that was. That whole concept of Sweet Tea was putting Buddy Guy with hill country blues.
It's a great record.
Taking him totally out of his Chicago element. His Chicago style blues is very different. And so he said, I'm looking for a dude that really knows how to play it, but that can, really communicate. And, Buddy's an older black guy from a different generation. He's not going to really cotton to some white dude in there. He's got to be somebody that can, like, relate, And so, me growing up in the Delta, me growing up with a lot of African-American people, me being playing, learning from them growing up.
Yeah, man, you had some credibility. It's not like you were like an engineer from LA that happened to play guitar.
But the engineer said, man, he had just heard me like goofing around on the blues, at the studio, and I'm sitting there doing this vaudeville shit with the Squirrel Nut Zippers. He didn't know I hadn't even begun to really get into that yet. And he said, man, he told Dennis Herring, the producer, and they need somebody who was like interject, could be a spark plug, could be like good cop to the producer's bad cop, to make Buddy do something he didn't want to do, basically. Like, and so it had to be, he wanted a spark plug, and if somebody had a little weird quirk in his playing, like those cats do. Right. And Ethan Allen's like, man, he sat there and thought about it. He said, man, he said, you're not going to believe it, but this dude from Squirrel Nut Zippers is your man. He said, call Jimbo. Here's his number. And I get this phone call, and it's it's a funny story, man. It's like, I get this phone call out of the blue. It's like, hi, I'm Dennis Herring. I'm about to produce a record with Buddy Guy. He explained the concept to me. He said, I knew the drum patterns on that record are based on this dude named Spam. Okay, he's a black man named Spam.
Okay.
Spam, and he played with this cat named T Model Ford, who was on Fat Possum Records as well. And Spam was he was very he was a little mentally, possibly somewhat retarded. I've come to find out, actually, he was really dyslexic, but he had this crazy drumming style. Really just played with a little small trap set with one hand, mostly.
Is this guy still around? I mean, has he made other records?
He's dead now. But Spam only could play with T-Model. He couldn't play with anybody else.
Okay.
But he had these freaking bizarre, unique, quirky drum style. And so I had known Spam because I used to take T-Model and Spam on the road to open up for Squirrel Nut Zippers, and I used to hang out with Spam.
And the guy's name is T-Model Ford.
Yeah. And Spam.
I'm writing this shit down. This is too good. I got to look this up. This is too interesting here, man.
And so the producer told me, like, Spam, the drum patterns are based on Spam, and I'm like, oh, fuck, I love Spam. He's my favorite drummer, and so there was a lot of things that he said, Ethan Allen told me that you were the guy. And I was like, I told Dennis, I said, man, if you don't hire me for this, you're fucking up. I said, I'm your man. It's the first time in my life I'd really gone like, I'm the dude.
Yeah. All promo. So you tell the guy, I am your guy.
I'm your guy.
Right.
And he said, I believe you. He said, here, my manager will be contacting you and send you a plane ticket. So next thing you know, I'm headed down to Oxford, Mississippi, which is where they're recording it, of all places.
Of all places, how nutty! So this is like everything. This is another one of these things here, man.
And so I come, and next thing I know, I'm sitting in the room with Buddy Guy, and so, like I said, it was supposed to be like a good cop, bad cop thing, because Dennis is a genius producer. He's out in L.A. I learned a lot from him. I was probably, how old was I then? I was over 30. I was about 33, I believe.
Okay.
And yeah, that's right, because I was 33. Dave Farragher was a bassist from Elvis Costello's band. He was 43. Spam was 53, and Buddy was 63. That's right.
Wow.
At that time, we were all 10 years apart. So it was kind of like, the concept was like, Dennis was just sick of Buddy making these records that were obviously like phoned in. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, he had a period for a while there where it just wasn't a lot of
wasn't a lot of action.
Yeah, right.
And he said, and he was like, man, I feel like his voice, in his early Chess records, his voice was so just great.
Really?
And so he wanted to really not just do the thing where Buddy comes in, puts on some headphones, there's a backing track, he sings along, and then he goes home. We had him for like 2 weeks in the studio, which he had never done. And so he fought us almost every day. So we'd come in every day, and that's one of the hardest jobs I ever had was making that record, because we'd come in and rehearse before he got there. And we tried a couple different drummers. It ended up being Spam couldn't cut it in the studio. He just couldn't play consistently enough. Mm-hmm. So what we did was this Sweet Tea record is an incredible record. But we ended up getting Pete Thomas from Elvis Costello's band actually just listened to the songs that we were covering and wrote out Spam's parts on drum notation, and then just played them solid, evenly.
Wow.
And even as it kept the eccentric quality of it, but played them solid like you need in the studio.
Yeah.
Or for a project like this with bass. And so, it ended up being Pete, but Sneaky Pete. But we would go and rehearse, say, from noon to 5. Take a break for dinner. Then Buddy would come in at 6, and we would cut till Dennis let us go home that night. It would usually be 11 or after midnight. We did that for 2 weeks. Yeah, we did. It was for 2 weeks, and so every morning Buddy would come in. We'd actually, since I was the band leader, and Dennis was the producer, Buddy was the artist. So Dennis wanted me there when they would have coffee in the morning, just to kind of be the good cop, because his whole plan was good cop, bad cop.
Right.
He knew that Buddy wasn't going to put up with this shit. And so he would have me there in the morning when Buddy would come in. And every morning, Buddy would be like, well, you know, I talked to my manager. I can't remember his manager's name. So he's going to get me a plane ticket, and I'm going to get up out of here tomorrow, this evening, which was a lie. And we did this every day. And Dennis was like, no. He said, Buddy, I got you till the such and such a date. He said, you ain't going nowhere. And you know, so we went through this every day. And then I'd be like, man, can you believe that motherfucker, man, talking about working us like this.
So you talked to, okay, I get it. Yeah. So let me ask you, I've seen him in concert like 4 or 5 times, and it's often a different Buddy Guy. Like you get one night, it's the Buddy Guy, motherfucker. You motherfuckers don't know any of my records. And he's got to be buzzed. Like he's got to be drunk. And he has to be, you know, I would think. And then the other time you get him and he's just like really shredding. And then another time he's kind of like, hey, how y'all doing? You know,
yeah.
And I'm not looking for gossip, but which is a real Buddy Guy? Or are they all the?
They're all the real one. You know, I mean,
yeah.
Here's what I learned from him. You know, I've never known him to be drunk on stage or anywhere. He'll sip
really? Okay.
No, it's not an alcohol thing. He's a very private guy, very shy guy, very quiet person. You know, it's just he doesn't really talk a lot. Like I was on the tour bus with him for years, you know, and we never hardly spoke, you know, a word.
Really?
He's just very quiet.
And you're a pretty interesting guy. I mean, like you seem like, I mean, this is an interview, but you seem like you're the guy who like to chat and like learn.
Yeah, I mean, but he doesn't chit chat like that.
Wow.
You know? And so, you know, it's very shy, retiring. And so I think it's just really, you get him, whatever he's feeling, you get that on stage. Like he saves everything he's got for when he hits that stage. And if it's a motherfucker, motherfucker that, that's what's going on. And if it's very humble and thankful, and if he's just talking about Eric Clapton or whatever the fuck he wants to talk about,
right?
You know, you're gonna get what you get. And he when he hits the stage, it's full bore. And when he leaves the stage, it's just shut down, quiet, mellow. So the way I look at it, I learned from him, because you know everybody's got stuff. You know, it takes energy to do a concert on stage, especially a blues concert like that, where it's all you, like it's pure emotion. He's not sitting there singing. It's not based on his lyrics. It's based on his fucking emotion coming out of that Stratocaster. And so it's draining, you know, to perform. It takes energy. And so, you know, a battery is, you know, just going down over time. You know, I mean, how much juice is left in that motherfucker. So he you know, at a concert, it goes a little, and then the rest of the time he's just kind of on, you know, power saver mode. And then, you see what I'm saying? It's like he's hanging on to every last. He wants to play and do his shit as long as he can, and you know, and so he really conserves and is mellow, and he doesn't waste his words or his energy. But when he hits stage, it's full on. I've never seen him not be full on.
I've never seen him not be full on stage for sure. I mean, he's just destroys the guitar every time I've seen him. It's just his personality is dramatically different, you know.
Right.
I always figured he was buzzed because he's.
It's
like,
not an alcohol thing. Man.
He just seems like angry, like really pissed off sometimes, man.
Maybe something happened to him. One of his girlfriends, you know, I mean, is just fucking with him. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
No, but yeah, it could be, because he'll come out and say, "Hey, man, can you name one of my albums?" And he'll like go over to pick somebody, and they're like on the spot and they're frozen, which they may not even know his album nowadays, right? And
right.
You know, so he's just. I was like, "What's going on there, man?" But I mean, I've never saw.
And it's a lot of a generational thing too, man.
Yeah,
it's where he's from. And there's a chip thing. There's a.
No, he's got an edge, you know, man, which is part of it. Yeah.
Coming from the deep South and the segregated South, growing up hard in Chicago, nobody gave him shit, you know. And then you know, it's just it's a real deal situation there.
I totally get that, man. No, and I think you need some of that to play with that kind of fire, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. But it's just him. Whatever he's feeling that night, if he's pissed off at something, it's coming out, you know. So it's on honesty.
Yeah. Oh, it's always
You know,
been honest. I never felt he was going on. I
it's an
saw him at the Beacon Theater in, God, the 80s, I think, in New York City, after opening for Johnny Winter, I think, one night.
wow.
I mean, yeah, it was crazy, man, isn't it?
Wow. And then, you know, he said, you know, knowing he's like the greatest blues guitarist, you know, solo guitarist probably ever, knowing that he like influenced Jimi Hendrix, he knows all this shit, and then all the indignation he's had to suffer,
Yeah,
coming up opening for people,
right?
Nothing against Johnny Winter,
No,
opening for John Mayer and opening for everybody, you know, all this shit, and see all these people go and be super well. Eric Clapton owns a fucking island or whatever, and to see all these people go, there's a real.
No, I could understand
There's a
that,
real
man.
thing in his mind that's like, even though on stage and when he talks about him, it's like, yeah, Eric Clapton, this and that. He can play fucking circles around Eric Clapton. Let's just be real.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody knows it, but yet Eric is a household name and on the radio, and so there's a little bit of that. You know.
Indignation. I totally get it. Man. Yeah, man, I get it. I don't think it's
not
unjustified.
self-righteous. It's fucking righteous.
No,
and that comes out sometimes, man. You know, it's like you don't. You know, that's what you're seeing when he's singling somebody out and going, "Why the fuck are you even here?" You know, you don't know my shit.
That's basically what he's saying. Yeah, like, why are you even here? That's exactly what he's saying. Yeah, like, why are you even here?
They know he's got a polka dot guitar, you know, and fuck that shit. I'm the greatest out of all time, you know, so there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
It makes that shit a little light on it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you, man. Because I mean,
yeah.
like, I've never seen anything fake from the guy at all. Just, I was always curious, like, what's up?
You got to put it into the context, you know, of his whole fucking 50+ year career. I mean, he moved to Chicago when he was a teenager. You know, he's from Louisiana, Lettsworth, Louisiana, just a little nowhere country town, sugarcane plantations and shit when he was growing up, you know, came from slavery, you know.
Yeah, that's heavy shit, man. What, I mean, that's crazy stuff that I don't even understand and I can't understand.
And he told me, man, you talk about a guiding hand and all. Here's a story. I don't know if he's ever told anybody, but he said when he was a kid, he used to sleepwalk a lot. And he used to have these like prophetic dreams. And he would dream when he was a child. Well, one time he woke up holding, like, his uncle had come over and was staying at their little cabin, the shack, you know, and he woke up. He wanted to play guitar, but his uncle wouldn't let him handle his guitar. And he actually woke up one night, like out, he had taken the guitar, walked out on the levee, like in the dark, you know, this is before lights and shit. And he was out, he woke up with the guitar in his hand, standing in this fucking, on the levee, you know, looking out over this huge field, didn't know where he was, but he had the guitar in his hands.
Holy.
And he used to have dreams that he was in front of, he said, thousands of people. He didn't know what he was doing. You know, he wasn't singing the blues, he wasn't playing the guitar, but he was just frightened by this huge mass of people in front of him. So he had like prophetic dreams about all this shit, you know, when he was a child. And he actually woke up in the middle of the night holding this guitar, you know, in the moonlight, out in the dark, in the country.
That's wild, man.
And didn't even know where the fuck he was.
Holy. What was the your playing probably was sharp as a tack after 2 or 3 years on the road with Buddy Guy, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it got me very, you know, not a lot of wiggle room in there.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was just a rhythm man, and we were doing a lot of that stripped down stuff. I never was really into his, like, Chicago show band stuff. Like, they had me for, like, the Sweet Tea stuff and the blues singer stuff, which was small bands, you know. You know, the blues singer was like an acoustic tour. You know, we had an upright bass.
Oh, who was that?
And, what's that?
Who played up?
Yeah, Larry Taylor from the fucking Canned Heat and
Tom Waits. My God,
the Mole who died.
Yeah,
you're the Mole.
Yeah, of course.
It was Buddy, the Mole, and the drummer was the cat from
Buddy the Mole.
Fabulous Thunderbirds.
Oh,
Richard. He was one of the cat. I think his name was Richard. Fuck, I can't even remember now.
It wasn't Chris Layton.
No, we did some shows with Double Trouble. He hated playing with Double Trouble. But in the studio for Blues Singer was Jim Keltner.
Oh wow.
Tony Garnier, me, and Buddy. That's the only thing on that record.
That's nice.
And talk about being sharp, but so we took that on the road. Tony and Keltner, they couldn't afford them. You know what I'm saying? Tony was with Bob Dylan, and Keltner's like the highest paid studio drummer out there. So we got the Mole, and I can't think of the other cat's name.
That's funny. You keep calling him the Mole. Yeah. That's his name, though. That's how everybody knows him.
Yeah. And so, you know, I was in like specialty bands for him. I wasn't like, I did some stuff with like his big show band with the horns and all the Chicago 12-bar stuff. And that was about that time that I ducked out.
Yeah.
You know, I was more interested in the Sweet Tea stuff and the blues singer stuff where it's just really him. And yeah, but.
let me ask you this, Jimbo.
So my role was pretty simple, just to answer your question. Like I was really just simple, basic country rhythm, you know, country blues rhythm, and just solid country blues rhythm is what I did for him, you know.
It must have been fun though, playing the good cop, bad cop, cool thing. Yeah,
it was fucking awesome. Somebody got on the tour bus, you know, because he kept going through bands at that time, like, and we got some new cat in the band. And I was sitting on the bus, and dude walked in, and he's like, "Man, I'm not Jimbo." He said, "You know, I know you've been with him for the past 2 or 3 years. So, like, any advice for me?" I was like, "Don't get fired."
Because it was everybody. He's churn and burn. Because he's so tough to.
Yeah, I was like, "Don't get fired." It's like, well, how do I not do that? I was like,
well, you got to have a bit of an edge to work with a guy like him, anyway, man. You know, you can't be soft.
Don't get fired.
Man, any low points, or how'd you get through? Tell me some of the low points in your life, and how'd you get through it, like darker periods?
Man, probably like worst thing that happened was that, well, after like say Zipper started in '93. Couple of guys in the band, you know, that I introduced to the band, encouraged them, you know, brought them in, encouraged them, mentored them. Well, the name's Tom Maxwell. Was the guy that wrote Hell, the big hit, you know. He was like one-hit wonder dude. Wrote the big hit, you know, and I'd saved a lot of money, man. You know, we made a lot of money. Back in the night, in about 6 years, I made a lot of money, you know.
Sure.
I had it all saved, and you know, I didn't really need anything. I didn't buy shit when I had the money anyway. When he turned on me and fucked me, man, you know, really tricked not only me but all the people that worked with me, the lawyers and people that should have known better, found a really fucking backhanded way through just like ego shit and like insecure bullshit. You know, I call it born insecure bullshit. Jealousy, you know, insecurity on his part. He decided that I'm the guy he's gonna fuck, you know, and found a way to do it. Like it took some doing, you know, so I went from having like, say, $250,000, like in like stocks and bonds and shit. Like I would have never worked another day in my life, to being like everything I had was gone, everything. And just basically overnight. And it just really fucked me up. I just was penniless after all this. Did he
get all this money, or all went to lawyers? Oh my God.
You know, I mean, I assumed that his lawyers got a bunch, and then whatever he got, him and his cohort, Ken Mosher, was his name, who also helped into the band, introduced, mentored, nurtured. I nurture, mentor musicians like they did me when I was a kid.
Yeah, sure.
They come sit in when I was 6 years old. They taught me, they took time with me, encouraged me. I do the same thing now for you. If you tell me you want to do music, I'm going to do the same fucking thing for you. So it was a real stab in the back. But you know what? It was like, you would think that was like a really low point. And it was hard to process and digest. But I ended up coming out and moved, I got left with, I had like a 1970 Monte Carlo, and I just drove back to Mississippi, and my marriage was in shambles after all this. Had to like abandon my whole scene up there just because my mind was so fucked.
Yeah.
And came back down here to Mississippi to lick my wounds, but I ended up realizing, man, I didn't get into this for the money. If I think back over, I didn't even think about money till, this is around 2000. I said, I never even thought about money till 7 years ago? I never even thought about it. Never crossed my mind. So I was like, I'm just going to go back to where I was. I'm going to go back to learning, gigging, pulling people in to collaborate, to work. I ended up with a couple of pieces of recording gear that they weren't able to find and take from me. I had them hidden in a fucking shed in North Carolina.
I can't believe you took your recording gear.
And they were after my ass, and for the reasons I told you. And so I had a couple of cool German preamps, had a nice old ribbon mic, and I came back down to Mississippi and started recording the blues. Opened up a little shop in Clarksdale in like an abandoned hotel, and just retooled the scene, man, and just suffered. I still don't make very much money, man. I live hand to mouth. I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do right now.
Oh my God. Yeah. Everybody's like, it's a crazy.
The money never came back. It never came back.
Wow.
And so it was like lightning in a bottle. I'm thankful that I started a band that has a legacy.
Right.
It's like so unique that there's nothing else like it.
Literally.
I can go out and work when we're not in the middle of a plague. And I can make a good living for me and my wife. I was able to raise my daughter, pay for her, and make sure she was taken care of. And so I would say that was a low point, but it is also like a reckoning that I just had to deal with. I wasn't meant to just make all that money and then lose my edge. Yeah. I don't know what would have happened to me. I don't know what would happen to me if I was just sitting there going, well, I'm making $5,000 a month off my interest on my stocks. So what the fuck? Why do I need, it's like, I've been out here fighting for my fucking life, ever since then. And maybe that's where I need to be, and I came to peace with that. It's like, I'm happy about it.
Well, you got remarried, which is good. Right? Yeah. You got reconnected with your daughter, which is really good. And I'm sure it's difficult and probably is difficult.
Over time, jail back, and just through persistence. I would say me keeping persistent, keeping on my mission, it has brought good things into my life. Not necessarily monetarily, but love, friends. I got to find shack to live in. See what I'm saying? I got a studio I can record in. I've produced dozens of records that people fucking love and appreciate, and I get to go out there normally and
when there's no plague. That was funny.
When there's no plague, and do what I started out doing. So the ins and outs of all that would take a lot of time, but I don't really like to dwell on.
No. I
you know what I'm saying? It's like,
totally, man.
That's it in a nutshell.
But man, you haven't had any health issues about it. No health issues or anything like that, right? That's when you're really messed up.
No.
That's what I'm saying. So
I've been blessed, man. So if you could call that, and at the time I was really upsetting. But it took me a couple of years to kind of get my mind back around. I was like, okay, that's all fine. Who gives a fuck? You know, I didn't get into it for the money, and so that's good because I ain't got none. You know.
Hey man, I'm gonna ask you three more questions, Jimbo. Tell me your top 3 desert island discs.
Ooh, baby.
Just for now, just for right now.
I would say, man, that's pretty easy.
Oh, awesome.
I would take any of my Charlie Parker Savoy records with the small band. You know, Charlie Parker, the saxophonist.
Yep.
Any of the records on Savoy, I just love the sound of those, and they're flawed, you know, in this very cool way because he was like had these crappy saxophones that he had to borrow because this was always in pawn. They were squeaking, and it's just genius, you know. It's so good. I think the producer's the guy named, well, hell, they cut him up in your neck of the woods, man. Maybe even in the Bronx or Brooklyn. Rudy Van Gelder, I think his name.
Yeah, okay. So Rudy Van Gelder is an engineer that had this. The whole thing with that guy. I read about him. He has done mixes on like Kenny Burrell, Grant Green, all these records.
Yeah.
And his whole thing was he would never tell anybody how he did them.
Yes. Then that's why I would take that record on the desert.
Rudy Van Gelder, right. I know you're talking about. Yep.
Because they sound so good. And I just love Charlie Parker. I would take Charlie Patton. You know, that anything I could get by him.
Mm-hmm.
And the third one, Desert Island record. I'd probably take like that Symphony in C minor, the Mozart Symphony in C minor. I'd take him.
I would take him.
I would take him along.
Take Mozart with me.
Yeah.
Any hobbies outside of music?
My wife's sitting here laughing. Yeah, you know, I like the visual arts as well.
Mm-hmm.
I love literature. Used to do a lot more fishing than I have had time for recently, but I really grew up in the outdoors.
Like bass fishing?
Yeah, bass,
catfish.
I like to go out on the lake with Jennifer, my wife, and just chill on a boat and catfish.
Yeah, man. I love fishing. No, fishing's great. It's like so like mellow, man.
And she's my wife's from Arkansas, and they have trout up there. You know, we go out on the White River and trout fish. I mean, I'd do it every day of my life if I could. Down in the bayous, we like going down there redfish. They call them redfish.
Yeah.
Down in the bayous, like that a lot.
That's cool, man. Fishing's relaxing.
Chance in about 4 years.
You need to get back out there, man.
I know.
And man, last question. Tell me, Jimbo, what's the biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years? And how much of that change has been intentional and how much is just a part of aging?
Change in my personality over the last 10 years. You know, it's funny because I was just thinking this morning when I was driving down to the valley. I don't think my personality's changed since I was 6 years old and picked up the mandolin, frankly.
Really?
I mean, I don't feel any different.
That's awesome. Well, I didn't say how you feel. You probably feel better.
I mean, I don't think my personality's changed.
You think your personality's the same? Interesting.
It's exactly the same.
Wow.
Jennifer, what do you think?
Wait a minute. How long you guys been together?
10 years.
Okay, so she's totally qualified.
Hold on. She can maybe shed more light on it than me.
So Jennifer, how are you?
You don't shoot dice like you used to.
I don't shoot dice as much as I used to.
You don't shoot dice like you used to. That's the apple doesn't fall far from the tree thing, right? With your dad, you said he was good at shooting dice and playing poker, right? Yeah, man.
I mean, I swear for God, I think I'm the same little dude I was back then. You know, I think I treat everybody, I feel the same. I treat everybody the same. I care about the same things. I try to take care of my people. or even rank strangers.
Well, dude,
you know, I don't feel like I've changed a bit, you know.
well, let me tell you, I really enjoy your personality, how you are now. I don't know how you've always been, but I'll take your word for it. And I really appreciate your time. Let me tell people where to thank you, man. It's very nice talking to you. You're a very good guy. And I appreciate you being so straightforward and so cool, man. And I appreciate your journey.
Thank you.
Let me tell you, it's first of all, Jimbo Mathus. It's Jimbo, Jimbo, Mathus, Mathus. You have to read up on him to figure out that one. All right. So if you're not familiar with the Squirrel Nut Zippers, yeah, please come out.
Yeah, we got the .com. We got the .com site.
Yeah, squirrelnutzippers.com, and they've been around for a long time, produce a lot of good music. And
Facebook and Instagram, yeah.
Yeah, the band's on Facebook and Instagram. Jim is also on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Jimbo Mathus. Also, man, I really would love everyone to listen to Jim's last record. It's called Incinerator. And if you don't have a lot of time, let me tell you the songs that you got to listen to. It's a really beautiful record, man. I mean,
thank you.
It's really powerful. Really Hurt Someone's a beautiful song. Never Know What You Got, Been Unraveling, and Sunken Road. They're all just first great writing, great music, his vocals. He's peaking on that one all the way around. Trust me. Also, the band. The band has a band page. He just put up a bunch of videos on Facebook, so if you want to check those out. Also, Jim does a lot of work. He's produced a shit ton of records, most specifically in the roots genre. And if you're an artist or a band and you may be trying to figure out what your voice is, how do you want to define yourself in this niche? How do you want to find your voice? Jimbo's like a really good guy to talk to about that. What I would do is find him on social media and shoot him a message. Just be comprehensive, just don't say, hey, I want to talk to you about production. Tell him, what you're doing, what kind of production you've had now. Why do you think he'd be a good help? What kind of help are you looking for? This way he can respond with some sort of common sense and logic. And if it's a fit, I'm sure you guys will wind up chatting, but he's a good guy to talk to for that, especially if you're in the roots genre. He also has a record he produced recently. He said Andrew Bird and I have a new record coming out in 2020, and I think it's called Pretty Rough. Pretty rough. It'll be because 2020 is pretty rough, and we're only 3 months into it. So that's a good title, Jimbo. And Betty Smith, I think you said.
Bette Smith from Brooklyn.
Smith.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you produced her record.
Among them, a lot, but she's pretty recent. She's something in like a soul and a more of a funk genre that they could check out my different sort of styles. Awesome. that I can cook up. Yeah, but she's actually from Brooklyn. Bette Smith, Bette Smith, and that's awesome. On Big Legal Mess Records, like a lot of my records are.
And
I'd encourage people to look at Big Legal Mess record label. Yeah,
and that's where a lot of your stuff is on.
Yeah.
Awesome. And if you work with Jimbo, man, maybe you get to go down there and listen to everybody talks like him, and you'd be in heaven for a few weeks. Dude, your accent. I only talked to one other person whose accent I love so much. It's a young lady from St. Bernard Parish in Louisiana.
Nice.
And I was like, man.
Bernard.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I was like, what did you just say? Can you say that again? She was like, anyway, man, thank you for everything, brother. If I could ever help you, please come back on the show. Hey, man, your next solo record, come back on here, man. I'd love to promote it. It's really cool, man.
I appreciate it.
Really good music.
Thanks to your listeners, too.
Thank you, man.
I appreciate y'all.
Hang on one second, Jimbo. Let me wrap this up. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. And please go check out Jimbo Mathus. I keep saying Mathus. It was spelled wrong originally. Anyway, keep checking out Jimbo Mathus. Listen to his last album, Incinerator. It's great. Check out Squirrel Nut Zippers if you had. Oh, and the Squirrel Nuts will be back on the road post-coronavirus Earth, whenever that is. We need Rod Serling from right? What was that? The Twilight Zone. Yeah, that's what shit we're going on right now. Anyway, and most important, everybody, remember, especially now, man, remember that happiness is a choice. So choose wisely. Be nice, go play a guitar and have fun and listen to some great music, man. Peace and love, everybody. I'm out. Thank you for everything. Jimbo, thanks, brother.